Welcome to episode 51 of the Nightly News Podcast, coming to you from the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio in the Boyer House on the Summerdale campus of Central Penn College. On today's episode, we will feature recent TED veteran Curtis Voelker talking about his discussion at TEDx Harrisburg, and we will also discuss some important initiatives going on in the student activities with Adrienne Thoman coming up later in the show. In the meantime, we are joined here by Nightly News veteran and former Vice President, Yuli Sadejo.
Hi, everyone.
Yuli, welcome back to the podcast. We're also joined by Curtis Voelker. Curtis, welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me again.
So one of the things that we really wanted to talk about with you, Curtis, today is something that happened in the very recent months for you, and that is your presentation that you gave at TEDx Harrisburg. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and obviously we will embed the TED Talk right inside so you can watch it and get a little bit more context as far as what type of message that you had, but we will talk about some of that. My question here is, tell us about some of the behind-the-scenes aspects of TED. Did you notice that, how did you get involved in this? Did you happen to know somebody that was part of the planning? Tell us a little bit about how you were brought into TEDx Harrisburg.
Sure. So as a speaker in general, I've been watching TED Talks on YouTube for quite some time, and I thought, wow, that would be such a great professional and personal goal to achieve, to be able to give a TED Talk. And it's been in the back of my mind for quite some time, and I eventually saw that last year, TEDx Harrisburg was formed. It was the first year it was started, and I thought to myself, wow, that'd be something really cool. This is my chance. This is my opportunity. And then when I looked on the link, I missed the deadline for submissions. So I said, personal note, mental note, go for this next year. I started to see this year TEDx application submissions apply now. I said, this is my chance. I got to do this. I applied. I saw the theme was evolve. So no one really reached out to me. It's just something I kept an eye on personally and professionally. And eventually, once I chatted with the TEDx personnel, they shared that they received over 60 applications from the surrounding area, and it all had to be based on the Evolve theme. So I'm sure they vetted some applications here and there with that. Once they vetted those applications, it was time for the second round. They had around 24 candidates for the second round, and the 24 candidates were asked to give a 1 to 2 minute speaking example on what their talk would be about and how it related to the Evolve theme. So I gave that 1 to 2 minutes. I connected online with them. It was not in person, so they were very flexible with schedules and things like that. And eventually I was chosen as one of the 12 speakers for TEDx Harrisburg this year. So relatively simple process. They really made it easy and simple, if you will, for the candidates to go through the application process. And the process overall, preparing for the talk, they provided you a mentor, they gave you the dates and times and everything you needed to be a success at the event. So very easy, very simple. So a huge thanks for them for making that process very good.
So I don't mean to do any kind of spoiler alert here for anyone who has yet to watch, but you did sort of buck the trend of a normal TED. I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'd say the average TED is anywhere between, say, 12 to 16 minutes, and you mentioned off air the maximum of 18 minutes. Yours clocks in from the time that you start speaking to the time that you conclude just over 5 minutes. I'm curious what your strategy was behind doing a more compact, I don't want to say more brief, because I think that you intended to give a 5-minute speech, and that was what you were going for. But what was your strategy when you were first developing this to say, you know what, I'm not going to go all that time. I'm not going to add a bunch of needed filler. What was your thought process there?
Right. So we had a time limit for TEDx Harrisburg of 18 minutes, and that was based off of the filming. They shared that with us that our talks would be filmed. They would be posted on the official TEDx YouTube channel, and anything over 18 minutes would probably get cut off. They'd have to do some editing for the video. So that was a concern. But thinking about this, there are 11 other speakers there for that day. The audience was around 100 people. I wanted to make a significant impact and something memorable for the 100 people in the audience. Now it's posted online. Anyone and everyone can watch it anytime they want, and they can critique it any way they want and things like that. But in that moment, I wanted to make an impact. So I think that myself as a speaker, I realized doing some research that I may not fit the typical mold of what you see in terms of TED Talks. A lot of them are more educationally based, instructional design, research-based, numbers, facts, figures. I see myself more as a motivational, inspirational, energetic speaker, and I really wanted to rely on my strengths that way. So my talk was more of a feel-good type story, and they did share with me as I was formulating my talk that they typically try not to have many of those, but they loved my story so much that they feel they had to have this as part of their program. So I realized there are going to be all these other people up there, 11 other speakers, probably doing something a little bit more educational, a little more highly intellectual, facts, figures, research for 12, 15, maybe even 20 minutes if they go over. And I just feel myself as a speaker, I like to have that burst, that energy, get some crowd interaction, and really have you walking away saying, wow, if I can say what I mean and feel in lesser amount of time and have that impact, imagine the things I can accomplish. And one of the speakers who actually had me on a podcast later, he pulled me aside and said, you very rarely have a speaker that can condense everything in the short amount of time like you did. He said, I've been speaking for quite some time, and I would kill to be able to have that skill. So that made me feel a lot better. I was kind of worried at first. Everyone else was going 12, 15 minutes, but at the end of the day, I think it fit me and it fit my message to have it short, sweet, and to the point.
It also reminds me the way it's constructed at Toastmaster too, because I know you've been to Toastmaster. It's also between our first speech is like 7 minutes, the max, 5 to 7 minutes. It's also remind me of that. So when I watch your show, it wasn't really surprising to me because it's really condensed, like the other people said, and it's right to the point, and you got everything clearly said, and everything is just like clear. It doesn't like, there's no confusion of what the message is.
Exactly, right to the point. I like that, Yuli. And I've kind of had that mindset even going through finishing papers and bachelor's and master's level here at Central Penn. One of my biggest questions, and my professors probably got annoyed with me, I always asked, well, why do we need 20 sources? I said to myself, if I can get the point across in 5 pages, why does it need to be 10 pages? And some of the answers I got, well, that's just how the academic world is. So, I conceded and went along with it and got those sources in those pages. But I've always felt if you can condense, why necessarily put in fluff or filler? I understand that, you're given a certain amount of time to make some great points and things like that, but with the message I was sending and the way I speak, I think that was just a better fit for me. And you want to tailor fit your talk with the audience, with the venue, and with the message you're trying to send.
Well, and I think that from my perspective in the classroom, you're asking about why should things be certain pages or why should things be certain lengths, and I'll just, in my personal mind, the reason that we do that is because typically the people who are having in a intro to public speaking class or other introductory or even at the 300 level this is the first time they've probably done something like this, whether it's writing a research paper, which Yuli's probably written 20, it's at this 50 at this point, right? My point is that we do put constraints on it so that students can envision the final product, right? Same thing in speeches. Like, for example, our first speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Maybe our second speech is 7 to 9, and our third is 9 to 11, just to give them a framework to work within. For you, though, for a speech like this, you're clearly a gifted public speaker.
Thank you.
You clearly understand that you have to understand who the audience is and what they want to take away from it. So I think in your case, I think that it's awesome that you felt that you didn't have to hold into this framework because you are experienced and you're an excellent public speaker. So that's what I think from a professor's perspective. It's really just about a framework.
Yeah.
And if you're cool with the framework that's already been established by TED and you don't feel that people are going to look at you differently because you only gave a 5-minute speech, why not? And I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, one of the things that you quoted in your TEDx presentation is you made a comment about having a passion for public speaking, which clearly you do, whether it's part of, I'd say it's a fairly significant part of your day-to-day job, but you also clearly have a lot of passion for impacting people in some way. So can you tell us a little bit about how this passion for public speaking sort of started, and maybe the evolution of this public speaking interest that you have.
Sure. So my personal story, at the age of 14, and I showed this in the TED Talk as well, for those of you that maybe have not clicked on the link just yet associated with the podcast. At about 14 years old, my parents were arrested in front of me, and I was eventually moved into the foster care system and lived in with my aunt and my uncle. New town, new school, new opportunity. And I always had people ask me, would you like to see a counselor? How are you coping? How are you feeling with everything going on? And I was always okay with it, and I think it surprised a lot of people. But when I thought about it more, I realized that maybe I could help some other people. And the foster care system I was associated with, they asked me to begin speaking with other foster care children to kind of share my story and share how do I keep that positive mindset? How do they have the ability and the power to kind of change their own path no matter what other decisions were made in their lives, maybe for them but not by them. And it was through sharing my story that it kind of helped me cope with maybe if there was any self-doubt or negativity in my mind. Me being able to formulate my thoughts and feelings into words to help others really helped me kind of de-stress and cope with those things going on. And I eventually saw and felt that I kind of liked it. I enjoyed speaking. I enjoyed making that impact. And I was eventually asked to speak with the House of Representatives in Harrisburg. I believe it was around my sophomore or junior year of high school. And my uncle I was living with at the time, on the ride home, he turned the radio down, and he said, I really think you have something here. And he was just so proud of me. I was one of the few students to actually stand up and speak in the House. It was just little mannerisms that no one really coached me on or told me to do. It's just something I got up and naturally did. And he said, seeing that natural tendency, that natural gift, if you will, as you kind of alluded to, and thank you for that compliment again, I really thought about it more and said, well, if this is a skill, I want to try to do everything I can to increase that. And when I came to Central Penn, Dr. Dillip, he was a huge mentor for me. Yes. And for those of you listening, Dr. Dillip Abhisekara, he was the former international president for Toastmasters that Yuli had mentioned. And Toastmasters, for those of you listening that may not know, it is an international public speaking club and organization that its sole purpose is to really help its members gain coaching and mentorship through public speaking. And he kind of took me under his wing and gave me some other tips and tricks and things like that, and it really kind of honed in on my skills. And then my time here as a student with student government, as Yuli is involved with, and any other clubs and activities, I had public speaking opportunities with that. So every little decision and speaking opportunity from the time that everything happened in my life with my parents up until now in my career, what I do every day, has got to me to where I am in terms of career, life, personal, professional, and it gives me more of a platform and opportunity to speak for those that maybe don't know how to formulate or get that message across. So if I can use my strength of public speaking in that way, I'm all for it.
Now, Yuli, based on sort of some of the things that Curtis talked about here, you are and have come in the time that I've known you so far in your public speaking. Mm-hmm. What was it about some of the early classes or some of the early opportunities that you had here, or maybe even off campus, that have made you into the public speaker you are today? Because you're fearless.
I think it started with the classes first. But before the classes started, I always wanted to be a motivational speaker. From the beginning, it's always been my dream that I think that I have a story, but I'm not sure yet. Still, to this day, still trying to find out what is the story about. But I think I always have a passion, same as Mr. Curtis, that I always want to inspire others, motivate others to be better. And then when I came here, I took the class with Professor Chow for the oral communication. And then I started talking with Professor Chow. I really like public speaking. And then we trying to decide. And then she asked me what major you're in. I said, well, I'm in human resources. So this is like a story from the beginning of like how I got here. When I got here, I was in human resources, and then she told me about corporate communication program and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, I'm really interested in public speaking. And she told me that with corporate communication, you can also do that with public speaking. And then beginning from there, sales introduced me to Toastmaster. And I only come for like, I think almost a year. And then I was able to get involved, being able to participate, get some speech out, and I was able to practice. I actually get a chance to give a presentation from my high school when I was an alumni at John Harris High School, giving presentation on how to use PowerPoint and how to use Google Word and Google Presentation. So I was able to bring that skills, learning what I experienced from classes and then from Toastmasters, and from everything in between a little bit with classes, with everybody else, human communication skills, to bring that presentation on to my high school, and then now with SGA and stuff like that. So that's how I really got to it.
Well, now, Yuli, you're sort of in a mentorship role, too, at this point, because you're sort of an emeritus, if you will, in the Nightly News and in SGA. How have you, maybe mentored other students as far as public speaking goes? Have you had the opportunity to work with anybody directly?
No, not as far off mentorship about public speaking. I would say about leadership and some of the plan that they have to get going, like SGA. Sometimes I think I have a little bit of time with Morgan and everybody else to talk. What do you guys plan on? What do you guys want to bring and envision about SGA in the future? We talk a little bit and some couple of stuff what Morgan want to work on and stuff like that.
And Yuli, I have to just completely agree with Professor Miller. I don't know if you remember, but I gave you your first campus tour.
Oh,
and we went down the underground, and you whooped me in some air hockey.
Yes.
And we got that picture. And just thinking back, you were a lot more quiet, a little bit more shy than what you are now.
Yeah.
And just to see you from day one on the campus tour till now, I know that Professor Miller and I probably can't be more proud of you, and you definitely have come a long way. And on the theme of public speaking in general, Yuli, with her positions that she's been involved with, and thinking about Central Penn overall, I had a discussion with someone about this. I think that we have a pretty good pocket of public speakers that come from Central Penn, even though we don't necessarily have a specific program within the school. I mean, we have a Toastmasters chapter that meets on campus, but not even all of the public speakers that we mention and talk about and promote really go through that program. I mean, when you think about Aaron Beverly, yes, he's probably the top that has come from Toastmasters, but I was only in it for some time. Yuli, have you been involved with it a little bit here
for
and
a
there?
year.
Okay, for a year.
Yeah,
And there's a couple more throughout the last couple of decades, very good public speakers that are representing companies and really just doing talks on their own. And they're probably in a major that is nowhere near associated with that communications field. So it was just something I thought about. Maybe in the future we have a program. I mean, we start to push out a couple new graduates here and there that are really great with it. Why not a couple more?
Absolutely, and certainly part of what I do too is I teach. I'm responsible for. We basically rewrote the whole entire public speaking course that's being offered, and everybody has to take it here, regardless of what major they are, associates, bachelors, etc. And we're actually thinking about developing more of an upper level public speaking course involving persuasion.
Yeah.
So that's something that's on the horizon. One thing before we move on from the TEDx itself, one of the things that I thought was very interesting about your specific presentation, and something certainly we always try to do when giving a presentation, is that you got the people in the audience involved, and you'd ask them on certain occasions to stomp their feet, to snap their fingers, to pat their thighs, and they were all very happy to do so. What was it about those specific things that really thought that gave your speech, put your speech over the top?
Sure. So all those activities were related to an audience engagement technique that I've used for a couple of different talks, and I relate it to the theme and the audience I'm with during that day or that talk, that presentation. And for this one, I called it the storm of success, because that's really what it is. It's walking your audience through a couple of different actions to make it sound like a rainstorm, a thunderstorm within the hall or area that you're speaking in. So when you start snapping your fingers, that eventually starts to sound like little drops of rain, and I relate it to the talk. And in this one specifically, it's you may feel weak, insignificant, alone when you start your educational journey or your community journey, whatever it might be. We start to work together, meet other like-minded people. We join organizations and start to give back a little bit, so the storm gets a little bit louder, and that's when they start patting their thighs. And then eventually everything starts to come together, and the storm goes a lot much stronger. We realize the impact we can make. We're starting to mentor and inspire other people, and that's when we start stomping our feet. And then when you stomp your feet and pat your thighs, it sounds like a complete thunderstorm. The rain's coming down, the lightning, the thunder, everything. On the video, you hear a little bit of it. You really have to adjust your speakers and volume to hear that, but I can tell you without a doubt, in the room, it sounded amazing. And just thinking about a lot of the facial expressions, people were just like, oh my gosh, this was awesome. And it just comes and goes really quick, just a quick burst of engagement, and that's really all I need, because researching again other TED Talks, it's all about the speaker that you see, and you very rarely see the audience. But within my message, it's not necessarily about me, it's about my story helping other people. So I wanted to pass on that engagement and the feel of my talk to the people in the room, because I'm hoping they leave inspired to, I mentioned in the video, flood their communities, flood their states with that quote-unquote storm of success.
And it's also remind me of the presentation that you did for the SGA. I think it was SGA leadership for the whole campus, when you share about your topic about passion, pass it on.
Yes.
So it's kind of remind me of that message, and you clearly brought that message from pass it on to your evolving story at that talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, last question I have for you here today, Curtis. Obviously, this was an amazing event for you. Hundreds of views on the TED Talk on YouTube, and you said you've gotten some great traction from other social media channels. Tell us what sort of the aftermath. What's happened since the TED Talk? Talk to us a little bit more about sort of what's happened since this sort of life-changing event.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing that I've seen come from giving the TED Talk is a lot more of a sense of community, belonging, that family-like mindset with Central Penn. On LinkedIn, I got a couple thousand views, around 100 different shares of my TED Talk, and a good majority of those were from graduates, recent graduates that I don't necessarily remember meeting or speaking to on a personal level at all, but the fact that they saw, here's a fellow Central Penn graduate, and they were kind enough to share my story to help motivate someone else, I think that's just one of the biggest things, because that was the main theme of my talk, is to share motivation and inspiration for others to give an impact in their community. And it worked. I mean, they're sharing the story. Whether it's because I'm a Central Penn graduate or because they like the talk, overall, the message is getting spread. And that was my main goal, was to spread that message. I was also asked to be on a podcast with one of my fellow TEDx speakers. His name is Nathan Eckel, and he's the owner and creator of Be the Talk. And his podcast highlights TED speakers. So I'm pretty sure he's trying to get the other TEDx Harrisburg speakers on board. And my talk with him should be posting here soon.
Excellent. And as soon as that's ready, I will put the link in the notes of this. Curtis, I got to tell you, number one, this is a very prestigious for you, and we've talked about that. Also very prestigious for the institution. You're, to the best of my knowledge, the first person from Central Penn College who's ever been featured in a TED Talk. And I think that you certainly were the best candidate at the time, and you did a really, really wonderful job. I actually look forward to maybe applying for this. This is definitely something that's in my wheelhouse that I would certainly be interested in doing at some point. So I just want to let you know how proud we are, certainly from the Nightly News,
yes,
certainly as a whole entire communication department, but also speaking for the institution. You should be very, very proud of yourself and what you've done here. You are an unbelievably valuable asset to this campus, and we're so honored to have you not only be have your bachelor's degree from Central Penn, but also recently your master's degree. So congratulations on everything, and we just cannot be more proud of you and the efforts that you've made. So
thank you very much. Can't do it without you guys. So, I mean, you guys make me think every day, why didn't I join the communications program?
Yuli, any final thoughts for Curtis?
I think that thank you for everything that you do for Central Penn College. The students, from the current students and the prospect students, you always inspire every other things. Like when you go outside to promote our school, I'm sure students always be inspired, I want to go to college. And even when we were here, you always been in school, going around, giving your tour, and then also the Closer Look weekend. Every single thing that you do is always something that you're always passionate about, and you really have the energy to do it.
Thank you very much, Yuli. It means a lot coming from, again, someone that I gave a tour on campus. I've seen you grow, and I'm definitely excited for the future for you.
Awesome.
One final plug I want to put in for you here, Curtis. You're presently in the process of going after the Man of the Year from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, or how people out there can get involved in this initiative?
Sure. I'm very excited for this. The Man of the Year, Man and Woman of the Year campaign with LLS, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Central PA. It is a 10-week fundraising competition. So I have signed up to save lives through this competition, and starting starting March 9th is when I can start collecting donations for LLS of Central PA. I'm currently seeking some team members to help me out through this process. I'd be more than glad to educate anyone on how they can help join me in this fight and in this cause. So I'm gearing up and just planning right now. But come March 9th, I'm ready to hit the road and get started on this awesome endeavor.
Well, certainly, if there's anything the Nightly News can do to assist you, we'd be happy to do so. If anything we can do for you, my friend, we're always interested to help out.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, Curtis, thank you very much for being here today and talking about TEDx Harrisburg and sort of what's happened in the aftermath since then. Of course, we will listen to you also on the Be the Talk podcast, which we will link in the story today. And, of course, Yuli. Every time I have you down in the studio, it's bittersweet because I know there's only a couple more of these left before you complete in March.
Yes.
So, Yuli, thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, well, we'll be right back with Student Activities Director Adrienne Thoman. We're going to start talking about some of the big events happening on campus in the month of March. So we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Brian Christiana. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast, a part of the Nightly News Media Club here at Central Penn College.
All right, welcome back to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller sitting in with you today. On the second segment of the show today, we're being joined by Student Activities Director and everyone's favorite podcast guest, Adrienne Thoman. Adrienne, welcome to the show.
I love that introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, from now on, I'm probably going to have to introduce you that way every time because every time I say that, you say how much you appreciate it.
I do. I love it.
Well, and so before we get into the details today, I do want to go back and flashback. Obviously, we are in episode 51. We had a very special podcast with President and Provost, Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams. She was on the show last week. And one of the things that we did, Brian Christiana, the president, did a preview article of it and had a little tidbit of trivia there at the bottom. And the question was, who was the individual who's been on the most number of podcasts of the first 50? And so we're here to announce that by the person that has been on the most shows. So, Adrienne, do you want to go ahead and field that answer to that question?
Oh, I am proud to say it was me.
So we went back, Brian and I went back, and we actually looked at all of the different episodes. Now, I will tell you, some of the early ones, we've definitely come a long way in the way that we post them on YouTube and specifically how I title them so they can be searched. But we've found that you've been on 12. This will be your 13th podcast.
Wow. I am honored to be here so many times.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Adrienne. We really appreciate what it is that you do, all the efforts that you give to give our students here on campus opportunity and fun. You take them all over the place. You just got done taking them bowling. You do the roller skating. You do things here on campus. You're coordinating with Common Hour. I know that's a big part of your job. So we also, and of course, how many clubs are you the advisor of as well?
I think 4 right now.
So you are the advisor of 4 clubs. I tell you what, I'm the advisor of 1, and I couldn't even think about trying to do another one. So we really, really appreciate this, and I'm just so happy that you enjoyed doing this and that you, respect what we're doing and see it as a positive outlet to get the message out about everything you're doing on campus. So thank you for being our, most prolific guest in Nightly News history. And as long as you come on once a month, I mean, you're going to continue to pad your lead because really there's only even a couple people who come down once a term. So
I'm totally holding my title now.
You're never going to give it up. So we're also joined by Michael Ademla, a Nightly News reporter. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Very well. One of the things that I did want to chat with you about before we do move on is you did have the opportunity to join us for episode 50. Yes. What did being on that show, maybe now that it's been a little while since we've done the show, what did that did that mean anything to you? I mean, of course, I'm sure as a member in the moment, and you've been with the club for quite some time, I'm sure it meant something. But thinking back, what were some of the positive things that you took away from that opportunity?
Well, definitely, I'm meeting Dr. Fedrizzi for the first time. Like a real introduction to her was definitely helpful. You know, getting to know who is very involved in the school, someone who actually cares about the improvement of the school, is something that's very important to me and should be very important to every student. And of course, there's no reason why you shouldn't at least know who she is. So getting introduced to her on a bigger level than just knowing of her was important to me.
Well, and we also have a very unique perspective from Dr. Fedrizzi for the simple fact that she comes from a communication background. And some of the answers, as I listened back to the show, some of the answers that she gave are certainly extremely applicable to you and what you have going on. And of course, you also have your internship coming up as well. So we, of course, it's always sad when we lose some of our most active club members, but it's a bittersweet type of thing because, of course, we want the best for you whenever your time's done here at the school. So, all right, thank you very much for supporting the club, and we'll move on to what we have coming up in March. So, Adrienne, there was a few things that I wanted to talk about. Of course, our favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3, will be coming up later in the show. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk about something that on occasion we talk about when we come into the final weeks of the term. Especially for many of our students, finals and coming into finals is very, very difficult, very trying and very challenging. And you do 2 specific events every single term that do a lot to increase morale for the students. The first one is Late Night Breakfast. That's going to take place on Thursday, March 15th. At 10 o'clock in the Night and Day Cafe, and that'll go from 10 to 11:30. Can you tell us, just based on previous late night breakfast, what is some of the things that do you do games? I mean, I know it's just food. I know sometimes there have been announcements. Do you do anything other than the camaraderie?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the tradition that late night breakfast provides. It's a really cool opportunity for, I know, as a staff member and as faculty, we get to cook up some pancakes. We get to have food there ready for our students when you guys, Michael, I'm looking at you, are up late at night cramming for your finals and everything.
As always.
So we get to feed you, have a great night, a little bit of social interaction, a little bit of, take a break from those studies, eat something good, and then you'll be able to jump right back at it. And we've done everything from last time we had games. We've done important announcements. In the fall, we had our special homecoming announcement.
That was very cool.
Was announced. So whatever timing-wise, it just kind of depends on the term and what's happening. But
let me ask you, behind the scenes, I know that you're obviously very involved with this. Who are some of the other individuals? Because you guys actually cook the food, right?
We do.
Right. So it's not the food service. It's you guys coming in and actually, rolling up your sleeves and cooking the food. Who else is involved with this? It doesn't have to be always, but who are some of the people that in the past have been involved in the actual cooking of this breakfast?
Well, it's fun. We kind of have a rotating crew, but we definitely have some faces that we see repeatedly. I have to give a shout out to Professor Tannenbaum. He heads up Team Bacon every single time. He does a great job with that. We're always happy to have him join us. Our registrar, Jen Carell, comes out. Of course, we see other student services people like Megan Klein, our college counselor, Dylan Epler, our associate director of Res Life, Dave Baker, our athletic director and retention officer. Very diverse crew. We have a ton of fun. We've had people from admissions. Melissa Mahoney has joined us. I'm trying to think of who else. Our business office, Deneen Collier, she was there last time with her husband. A whole bunch of different people. It's always a crew. We always have fun.
I've gotten questions before about wanting to do this, and it's so unfortunate, and I feel like I'm so old because I'm in bed by then. Adrienne, I'd be worthless on Friday.
No, it's coffee. Coffee is key.
I know, but I usually only have 1 cup of coffee a day, and that's about it for me.
Have that cup of coffee about 10 o'clock. You'll be good.
I'll tell you, one of these, I promise you. In fact, if you let me know in summer, I will be there. And during the spring term. So not this coming up one in March, but the following one. As long as you let me know in advance the date.
Listeners,
I will promise that I will be there.
This is documented, listeners.
And hey, I like to cook. We cook a lot at the house, and I might even be able to bring some new recipes.
Oh, I love it.
I love French toast. I've got the best French toast recipe that you've ever had.
He makes a great pasta, too.
Does he?
Yeah.
When did you ever eat my food?
You brought it once to a media club meeting.
That I made?
We did it for the podcast event. Remember?
Yes, but and the soups too that we sell, I've made those too.
Oh yeah, they're good.
So.
The soups are good.
Well,
I guess I wasn't lucky enough to get on the pasta run, but the
Crazy
soups were good.
So, one of the things that you always love to do, late night breakfast. Mike, have you ever attended the late night breakfast?
At least the last 3 times, for sure.
What is it about the late night breakfast? Do you think it improves morale? Do you think it maybe that's a specific night where a lot of people are in the library or studying, and that's a good little break? I mean, tell me about it from a student's perspective.
Well, first of all, free food will get anyone anywhere. It's a fact.
Of course.
This is not debated. This has been since the beginning of time. But all jokes aside, it does bring people together to actually work on assignments. It's an event that people do look forward to because it's like, okay, I have to do all these things, but at least I won't be doing them alone. It brings a sense of involvement within the student community here at the college, I would say.
Awesome. So, again, that'll be Thursday, March 15th from 10 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. That'll be in the Night and Day Cafe for the late night breakfast. And, of course, Adrienne, what would the last few weeks of the term be without discussing the all-important Cram Jam? Cram Jam is going to take place on March the 18th, and that'll be from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. on the 19th.
Now we're talking about need for coffee. That is the night.
I will tell you, I can pretty much promise you, you'll never see me making that. It's just not going to happen. That would throw me off for the entire week.
We have a blast. Michael, you made it to what, 5 a.m. last time?
Yeah.
All right. What are you doing this time? You going to make it the whole time?
I'm going to do better than you.
Well, I have to be there, so I hope I don't fall asleep.
You've never fallen asleep at any of these events?
I'm
No.
sure she snuck into her office last time.
No,
That's right. Your office is right around the corner.
Only once did I take a nap on the couch in the underground lounge. Once. That was like my first one, and I had to stay for a meeting. I'm like, I can't do it. I have to take a nap.
So wait, you had a meeting Monday morning?
I thought, I could just schedule it right after Cram Jam. I had this meeting. I couldn't even function. I took a nap on the couch and then went to my meeting and then went home. I slept like a whole day.
So I know we're still in the planning phases of this. I mean, as this podcast is released, it's still about 3 weeks away. So I certainly understand if you don't know exactly what's coming up for this one. But can you talk about some of the things that you've done in the past, maybe some of the things that maybe you're working on for this one?
Absolutely. So I first have to give a shout out to our Activities Advisory Board. They really do an amazing job. They take the lead on this event, help to put all of the details together, help to plan the activities. Typically, we do, like when we get started, we have light snacks, we have games. I know they've done Uno's a big thing right now. They've been doing lots of Uno tournaments, and there's a video game. Is it 2K or Madden?
Both.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so then they get what's the Xbox?
Yeah.
Okay, so they get that going. They have that. We do bingo. We do pizza, movie. Usually there's some kind of like make one, take one, craft in the wee hours of morning. We make pancakes on the griddle. We have fun. Zumba sometimes.
So, Mike, speaking from somebody who's done it, I've never, honestly, and we talk about this off air, I've never been one to be up all night. How easy or hard was it for you to maybe stay up till 5 a.m.?
It's really not that hard for me because I'm a college student. I'm used to staying up late to get homework done.
That's the key, right?
And even if you are tired, all you have to do is take a long afternoon nap. So if you go to bed at 6 and wake up at 12, you're good. Your sleep clock will be messed up later, but you're good.
Well, unfortunately, you do it on a Sunday, so Monday the kids can recover before they have to get back to class on Tuesday.
And
Perfect.
take their finals. Yeah. No, it's not all. There is some studying that happens, right?
Yes.
There's some
Definitely.
studying that goes down. People bring laptops and papers and
I was doing work
gets
for
done
3
too.
hours there last time.
And then I think that's part of it too. Maybe when you're around people and you see other people study and you think maybe I should be studying too.
Yeah.
So, Adrienne, I got to tell you that these two events are ones that even we as faculty hear a lot about from the students, looking forward to it. I really think that the late night breakfast gives a chance to have some camaraderie, especially with some of the people who are doing the cooking of the food, giving back to the students, saying, you know what, we appreciate how much you've given this term. We'd like to give a little bit back to you. And a Cram Jam as well. I mean, it's definitely something unique. It's something that students can always look forward to, and you continue to just do such a wonderful job with those events. And if I recall correctly, the last Cram Jam you said was either the highest attended or the one with the most people that made it all night.
I think it was the most people that made it all night.
which is in itself a banner achievement alone. So, all right. Well, we've now reached the time of Adrienne's Featured 3. So, Adrienne, we'll start at the very beginning of the month. What is event number 1 on Adrienne's Featured 3?
Okay, let's picture that red carpet. The celebrities all dolled up, right? Ready for the big Oscars night. We're going to do an Oscars viewing party in the Underground Lounge. Typically, we order lots of Chinese food, have tons of food and snacks for everybody to eat. We let you have your own ballot form, and you guess who you think is going to win in each category. So then we have prizes for those that might have guessed correctly. So it's a whole kind of fun gaming night as we watch the show and see who wins all the awards.
I would actually like to have a part in that. Now, if I would win, I wouldn't want the prize. You could give it to someone else. But I enjoy these kinds of things. I'm a big film buff. I have my Big Lebowski Humanities film series coming up in April.
Nice.
So I'm obviously a big film buff. I would love to, when you get the ballot, just let me get one and I'll fill one out and see how I stack up.
All right.
Now, here's a question, and this is maybe a little outside the box. One of the biggest trends I've seen in events is doing a red carpet photo shoot. Is that ever something that you might be able to do for this Oscar event? Not to necessarily tell people to come get all dressed up, but I think it would be pretty cool if, you open the door to the underground and right there's a backdrop and you've got Mike taking pictures and everybody can get their red carpet pictures before they go into the lounge to watch the Oscars. I don't know. I think you know what I'm talking about. A lot of local events, and I would actually, I'm sure the gala is actually probably going to have something like that too. But is that something you've thought about?
I totally love that. The first year we did it, we made all access passes for everybody to wear on a lanyard, so they needed their all access pass to get in the room. But I love the photo booth idea. What do you think? Are you going to be our photog?
Pay me. Nah, I'll do it for you, Miss Adrienne.
Yeah? All right.
Sure,
so that would be something really cool. Just have a little backdrop there, make it like if we have a red carpet, we could put out.
I have a red carpet. Not a high quality red carpet, but it would be suitable.
I think that would be something that's really cool, and I think that's and again, you could help us. Maybe you could just grab people's phones; they could share it on social media. I think it'd be something that would add to the allure of the event.
I like it.
So, Oscars viewing party, that's on March 4th at 8 o'clock in the Underground Lounge. Adrienne, what is event number 2 for Adrienne's Featured 3?
Our students are just putting together some amazing programming this term. Our Equal Nights Club, which is our Gay Straight Alliance, they are putting together an event that's going to focus on the experience of being LGBT in the workforce. Certainly there are very specific needs and concerns. And we have Amanda Arbor from the GLBT Center in Harrisburg that's going to come in and lead a panel discussion, get different perspectives and input for our students who may or may not be GLBT, but either way, things to think of as you're entering the workforce and how to be inclusive to everybody.
Well, and that's the thing, too. Part of one of the things that we talk about, certainly when we talk organizational communication, is the importance of diversity. And I think a lot of people think, racial diversity, which, of course, obviously very important, but diversity means a lot more than just race. It means age. It means sexual orientation. There's a lot of things that mean diversity in different ways, and I really think that this is something that's going to help open the eyes of people who are going to be getting into the workforce and are going to be dealing with different people from different backgrounds. And I think it's very important that we are aware of that, so we are prepared for that when we do enter the job force.
And it's something so simple. I think, I'm married, so I'm married to a man, so I identify as being straight. And even changing language, instead of, if you're meeting a new coworker, instead of saying, are you married? Well, you can be married now, but who's your husband, or say, do you have a partner? Oh, who? I always say, who's your honey bunny? But there are ways to say it. Adrienne. There are ways to say it in a way that's going to be inclusive of everybody.
Also, I do know that one of our students in the club, Sai, is working currently on a mini documentary about LGBT students on campus and also working in the community. So I do invite you to that, and I'll put it out on the Nightly News page whenever he will be giving that presentation for our class. So it's something he's working on right now, and I look forward to seeing it myself.
Absolutely.
Adrienne, we have one final major event in March. Let's talk about it.
I am so excited. Selfishly, I have to plug this because I feel honored to be a member of the cast of this show, and I think I may have heard a soundbite that had someone else in it too.
I may have a cameo role, yes, but only not necessarily live, but yes. Yeah, I may have been asked to do something small, and it was very, very fun to do. So you'll have to wait and hear where my part is. But I don't want to steal any thunder from any of the actors and actresses in this actresses in this play, because I am so excited for this, and I was just so fortunate to be asked to be a part of it. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, one of our faculty members, Professor Chow, is a poet and a playwright, and one of the things that she had done was gather the stories of women that had lived through the civil rights movement. And she took their stories, made them into these incredible poems, and now working with our theater director, Janet Bixler, they're putting it on stage. And I'll tell you what, every rehearsal, I am just so amazed seeing, it's not Annie. It's not a show that we've seen 1,000 times and we know what it's going to happen. Like, here it is, this process of creating from real stories. And these women, some of these women that shared their stories are going to be in the audience. And we have the honor of bringing their experiences to the stage. So it's just, I can't say how much I am honored to be a part of it and how excited I am about it.
It was... one thing that I will say is obviously anybody who's listened to the podcast knows Yuli. And also in my projects and corporate communication class, Yuli is doing her professional project with the Reclaiming My Time. She's helping them do some social media posts. She's helping them to put together a website, because Professor Chow had been on previously, and she'd mentioned that, this is the first time. So not only, she was talking about rehearsals, not only do the cast get to be a part of something for the first time, this is also something that she hopes to adapt for many different venues to do this in the future. So the fact that, and you are a part of the show,
I am.
So the fact that you are a part of the first time of this show, I think is really, I'm honored to even have a small piece in it, and of course I can only imagine how you feel. Obviously you're much more involved in the creative process of it. Guys, Reclaiming My Time from Professor Maria Chow, and also being produced by theater director Janet Bixler. I know that she would give me a hard time if I didn't throw that in there. They are working their tails off. The cast, the crew is working their tails off, and I'm very fortunate to be, in some very small way, involved. I don't want to give it away because I want it to be a surprise for those. And I'm sure you obviously heard it because you were there, but it was fun, and I certainly look forward to supporting them. That show's going to take place in the Capital BlueCross Theatre on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, March 8th, 9th, and 10th at 7:30 p.m., and a special matinee on Sunday the 11th. Now, I will make one final statement. On Sunday the 11th, after the show, there's going to be a special panel discussion with some of the people who were featured that Professor Chow is bringing on campus, which simply means that after the show, there's going to be an additional opportunity to engage with some of the people. Okay, so again, that's Thursday, March 8th, Friday, March 9th, and Saturday, March 10th, and all at 7:30 p.m., and a special matinee on Sunday, March the 11th, with a panel discussion afterward. So, Adrienne, I got to wish you the best of luck at that show. I mean, I've never been one. Now, I don't mind getting up in front of an audience, but I've never been one to, try my hand in theater.
Well, maybe you should.
Maybe I should. I'm
it's
sure.
A lot of fun.
Sooner or later, Janet's going to convince me to do that. So.
Well, she's all ready. She's pulling you in with the soundbite.
And I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to do. Mike, are you planning on checking out the show?
Yes, just say yes.
I should be there that weekend, so why not?
So, and that's the thing, too, even if, I know you love taking pictures, even if you want to get some great pictures for us, we can do some press, even if you're here Thursday night and you just want to come in and snap off a few pictures, we can put it up on the Nightly News page, give you full photo credit, and then we can, help them try to drive some more traffic into the shows.
Oh, and I will say
Okay.
this. If you are interested in coming on, I believe Saturday and Sunday, both of those shows, they aren't sold out yet, but ticket sales are pretty substantial. So I would not wait if you were planning on seeing it on the weekend.
I know that at the last look, the Saturday, Sunday shows were filling up very quickly, as was the Friday show as well. So by the time you're listening to this, please check out where we are and make sure that you can get your tickets in advance. So, all right, Adrienne, just to recap, Adrienne's featured 3 and some of the other events that we talked about. Sunday, March 4th, we have the Oscars viewing party in the Underground Lounge at 8 p.m. Flash forward to March 7th, that's a Wednesday, for Common Hour, the Equal Nights Present, being GLBT in the workforce, and that will be in ATEC 200. We are also looking forward to Reclaiming My Time. That's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 8th through the 11th, with a special matinee on the 11th. We got Late Night Breakfast coming up on March 15th from 10 to 11:30 p.m. And, of course, Cram Jam that begins on the 18th of March at 7 p.m. That'll go all the way to Monday the 19th at 5 a.m. Adrienne, thank you so very much for taking the time out here with us today to chat about what's coming up in March.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And Mike, as always, it's much appreciated when you come down here and be on the podcast, and I really hope that you appreciate these opportunities. And hey, you never know. Maybe we'll be listening to the Michael Odemola podcast before you know it.
That's a good idea.
Wow. Just dropped that one on me. That's crazy.
Well, hey, you never know what's going to end up happening. So
Fair enough.
But,
thanks for having me.
Hey, you're always welcome, my friend. All right, well, for Michael Odemola, Nightly News reporter and photographer, and, of course, Student Activities Director, Adrienne Thoman, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.